Hey guys, welcome back to Anime Gossips. This is my recap for the anime I Was Reincarnated as the Seventh Prince. The story begins with a boy who seems to be in trouble. Crows are flying above his head, and a group of people standing in front of him are laughing. The leader of the group asks the boy to use his magic as a gift to save his life. The boy uses his magic and tries to attack the leader with a fireball, but it doesn't do any damage. They start laughing at him again, saying this is the most that a commoner can do. The leader tells him that the great father of sorcery has said that for a magic user, it becomes important to have blood relation, talent, and focus to be strong. He asks him not to misunderstand him. For a magic user, effort should be the first priority. But magic will never shine for a commoner like him. He uses his magic and attacks the boy. The attack strikes, and he starts screaming so loud that crows fly away and everything is disturbed. He starts burning but suddenly realizes that magic is so powerful, which can only be used by a gifted noble. He feels it is so hot, painful, and surprisingly beautiful as well. He finds it amazing. As he turns into ashes, he thinks if he has a wish, then he wants to learn and master the magic. Elsewhere, a baby opens his eyes and sees some maids standing in front of him. He gets confused and starts asking himself where he is, and who these giants are. He thinks they are the enemy and tries to defend himself with fireball magic. He then realizes that his hands are smaller, but manages to strike a powerful fireball attack on the roof, causing serious damage. Meanwhile, people standing outside the castle see the fireworks and start celebrating. A kid starts running with joy, saying that it's a great day as it's the birth of Prince Lloyd, the Saloon Kingdom's seventh prince. Back in the castle, the maids standing around Lloyd seem surprised by the fireball attack, which breaks the roof of the castle. Lloyd smiles while smoke comes from his finger, as a small magic does so much destruction. After some years, peace and happiness spread throughout the kingdom. People are happily doing business and walking around. Back in the castle, maids are searching for Lloyd everywhere. They decide to go in another direction to search for the prince. Meanwhile, Lloyd is hiding behind a statue and finds that the maids are gone. He starts running in the opposite direction where he is stopped by two men. Lloyd asks them to keep silent and not to tell the maids that they saw him. They agree with Lloyd and ask him to join them in hunting to experience some royal things. However, Lloyd runs away from there. One of them asks why they need his favor as the seventh prince will not be able to get the crown. His senior replies that he is not like others. He started speaking shortly after birth. He reads spell books instead of picture books like others. Also, he refuses breast milk like the way any gentleman would. And more than that, he thinks Prince Lloyd is the reincarnation of the great sage William Bordeaux. But his friend tells him it's ridiculous as he is the reincarnation of a great sage. Meanwhile, Lloyd runs downstairs and says he's right that he is someone reincarnated, as he was just a commoner in his past life. Elsewhere, maids are searching for him and asking him to come out. But Lloyd is busy thinking about why his past memories are still intact, and wonders why he was born as the seventh son of the royal family. He refuses to care about these things and follows the same philosophy he did in his past life, finding out how awesome magic can be in the palace. He enters a library and is amazed by the magic books collection, thinking it would have all magic information. He pulls out a book, but Silpha catches him from behind. Silpha and Lloyd then engage in sword fighting. Lloyd stops and asks why he needs to learn sword fights as he is the seventh prince, and far away from getting the throne. Silpha replies that it's important for Lloyd to learn handling swords as a member of the royal family. 3 years ago, she was in charge of teaching him, and now this has become the purpose of her life. Lloyd understands that if he doesn't show any good results to Silpha, she will make him practice until evening. They start practicing again, and this time Silpha praises his moves. Lloyd observes how Silpha attacks, so he starts using control-type magic, in which he can trace all of Silpha's moves. It's like fighting a mirror image of her. In other words, he is cheating, because he wants to go and read. But Lloyd keeps losing against her attacks. He finds that her stamina, height, and strength are higher than his, which is why he keeps losing. He can copy her techniques, but these physical differences will always make him lose. Lloyd uses biotic growth, strength enhancement, and levitation magic to match Silpha's levels. He starts matching her level and giving her tough competition. They start fighting seriously. Lloyd thinks that he is copying her attack and she is fighting a mirror image. But what if he suddenly made a different move? He releases the trace magic and goes for an attack, feeling sorry for Silpha. But Silpha counters his attack and tells him that she knows he is cheating, and ends the battle with a hit on his head. Silpha says that she already noticed the difference in his attacks, and how he grew the wooden sword and levitated to match the height difference, and was almost able to match the differences in their level. Silpha suddenly becomes happy, saying that he is so amazing and talented that he can use 2 magic spells at a time, which is even difficult for the court's magician. She tells him that she will not force him anymore. He can grow on his own. She blesses him for his future and says she will keep him company. Lloyd finds that she didn't notice his physical enhancement and control magic, as he is using 4 spells at a time, and he will keep it a secret. Silpha takes him to the maid's bath, and the maids are enjoying as Silpha is helping Lloyd to get a bath. However, he wants to study magic. He seems frustrated and asks to be left alone as he can bathe by himself. Silpha refuses and says if she does that, he will go and read books only, instead of taking a bath. Now other maids try to make Lloyd scared. If he behaves like bad boys, then the demon from the Forbidden Library will gobble him up. Lloyd gets surprised as there's a forbidden library with a demon. They say a long time ago Saloon was nearly destroyed, and after many sacrifices of countless mages, the demon named Grimoire was sealed away in a book, which was kept in the Forbidden Library. Silpha says it might be a made-up story. Even if it's real, what could a demon that's already sealed in a book do? And that's ridiculous. Even Prince Lloyd wouldn't be afraid of him. However, Lloyd seemed afraid, and the maids got worried for him, and everyone asked him to sleep with them if he is afraid. But Silpha says as she is his teacher, he will sleep in her room only. They decide that Lloyd will sleep in the maids' dorms, but Silpha refuses. Lloyd sneaks away from them and gets excited for the underground Forbidden Library. At night, Lloyd goes down the castle to find the Forbidden Library and uses an air-class spell, Concealment, to become invisible to others. There are 2 guards there. One of them seems tired, and the other tells him to stay awake, as the demon sealed inside can shake the whole kingdom if it's released. Listening to what the guard says, Lloyd confirms that the library is downstairs. The guards say even if someone passes them to enter the library. Then there is a powerful sealing spell on the entrance which is cast by 10 strong mages to create an unbreakable barrier. However, Lloyd breaks the barriers easily using his magical power and enters the library. It gets him excited as he has been living in the castle for 10 years and found this exciting library today. Lloyd says he will replace the barrier outside the door after reading the books. He sits down to read a book, but suddenly the demon starts moving the book in which he sealed. Grimoire tells him he's impressed as he was able to break the door's seal. Grimoire asks Lloyd to free him in exchange for gold. As the seal is getting weaker with time, it will surely break soon. Lloyd picks the gold and says that the gold is created from dust by creation magic. Lloyd says he is also going to replace the seal once he finishes reading books. He says his study of magic is based outside the kingdom, and he can't let some dangerous demon threaten it. Grimoire says that the magician who sealed him lived centuries ago, and he doesn't have any problem with today's people. However, Lloyd says he doesn't believe him. Grimoire offers him to teach ancient magic that was lost hundreds of years ago, in exchange for breaking the seal, and he thinks Lloyd is interested in it. After hearing about ancient magic, he asks Grimoire if he'll teach him. Grimoire says Lloyd has a lot of potential to learn them. Lloyd remembers what happened in the past, as the leader told him magic will never smile upon a commoner like him. Back to the present, Lloyd tells Grimoire if magic is linked to lineage and talent, then he's a more privileged body than any commoner. Lloyd makes a key with magic and breaks the seal. Grimoire can't believe that Lloyd has broken the seal. Lloyd asks Grimoire to teach ancient magic like he promised, but Grimoire attacks him with Arctis Obscura, a powerful magic attack. However, Lloyd creates a barrier around him to defend against the attack, and gets amazed to see this type of unique spell. He asks Grimoire to show him some more magic like this. Grimoire gets furious and starts attacking him multiple times, but it doesn't make a single scratch on Lloyd's barrier. Lloyd gets excited after seeing the magic and wants to feel the magic by himself. He finds this as a bad habit which can finish him again, but he still picks the magic in his finger and feels the pain and how beautiful it looks. Lloyd asks him to show what else he can do. Grimoire gets angry and starts a dual incantation and makes a powerful fireball attack called Arctis Obscura Forta. Lloyd starts thinking that this attack is stronger as it is a double incantation of the spell, which will lead to more damage. But the attack leaves no damage on Lloyd's barrier. Grimoire is shocked that his most powerful attack can't cause any damage to Lloyd. He praises Grimoire's magic and finds it interesting. He says it must have been a lot of fun to learn magic. Grimoire gets scared and tries to run away, but he's stopped by a barrier. It's created by Lloyd, which stops him from going toward the castle. Grimoire asks if he thinks that he is going to run away, but Lloyd says of course not. He just wants to be careful. As in the past, he made a big mistake, blowing up the castle's rooftop. Grimoire gets angry and plans to attack Lloyd, but Lloyd stops him, saying he already knows that. Lloyd asks him to show his defensive power against his attack. He uses a powerful magic attack called Pilance Insinis on Grimoire. Grimoire is surprised by the power of the attack and gets defeated. Lloyd comes near Grimoire and asks him why he didn't defend. After some time, Lloyd starts restoring the library to its original state. Grimoire calls Lloyd his master and says that he has perfectly restored the room after it had been blown to bits. He says he hasn't met a magician like him before. Lloyd praises him and tells him that demons can't be eliminated with magic. Grimoire replies they don't, but it hurts them. Lloyd wonders how many attacks he can survive, but Grimoire gets scared of him and says he will obey him and serve him as a familiar. Lloyd asks him to turn small and come in his pocket. Grimoire turns small, thinking he will take control of his mind and occupy his body. But after coming close to Lloyd, he starts shaking with fear, as Lloyd's mana is so dense. Lloyd asks Grimoire if he has a cold, but Grimoire says he is alright, and asks Lloyd to call him Grim from now on. He finds Lloyd is sure a monster with high magical powers, and decides to stay obedient as of now. Lloyd is excited as he's going to read magical books in the Forbidden Library. After returning from the Forbidden Library, Lloyd is reading magic books in the castle library. His older brother Albert enters the library, and Lloyd is happy to see him. In the training ground, Albert starts practicing his magic. He hits the target perfectly, impressing everyone. Lloyd says that Albert is really good at magic, and mentions that Albert is the second prince for the Saloon throne, and he is also physically capable as well as smart. People talk about the possibility of him becoming the next king. Lloyd also mentions that Albert has the authority to access all the facilities of the castle, and he invites him to join them. Lloyd says this is a rare chance that he is allowed to use magic inside the castle, and he is grateful for this. Albert tells Lloyd that it's his turn to use magic, and Lloyd agrees. Lloyd says he doesn't care about being the king of Saloon. Also, he doesn't want to get involved in the race for the throne. All he wants is to study magic without getting people's attention. He thinks he only needs to aim correctly to hit the targets. Grim says it's hard to hit them without causing damage. Lloyd uses his magic and hits all the targets. Everyone standing there starts clapping. One man says hitting targets seems to be the best Lloyd can do. Grim gets frustrated and calls the man a dumbass, saying Lloyd actually managed to graze all the targets, which is impressive. Lloyd thinks it's good to add rotation to fireballs because it makes them more stable without using much energy. Grim thinks Lloyd is crazy about magic. Albert tells Lloyd he's taking a break, and Lloyd can play around if he wants. Lloyd tells Grim it's great because he has an empty place to practice, and he wants to try many things. He says for now he wants to try doing a double incantation at once like Grim. Grim says it's impossible because only demons can do that, since they have two mouths. Lloyd uses magic and puts Grim in his hand and says it worked. Grim warns that if someone can do that, they shouldn't try to absorb a demon into their body. Lloyd says, let's try it out. Lloyd asks Grim if he can use Pilance Insinis. Grim reminds Lloyd that he's a demon, so casting advanced magic will be easy, and then they start casting the spell. But Grim seems shocked, and Lloyd asks what is wrong with him. Grim says that he should be the one asking questions, and asks what exactly he was doing. Lloyd says that it was just a spell stack. Spell stacking is a method to combine the incantations of multiple spells to make them faster. Lloyd is trying 100 different incantations using this method. Grim is surprised and says it doesn't work like that. He explains that a single stack usually has 2 or 3 spells at once, but Lloyd says it'll take forever this way. Lloyd realizes that he can talk from his hand too, and he can talk from both mouths at once. Grim asks if he's trying to cast 2 advanced incantations at the same time. Lloyd says sorry as he needs to use the hand for some time. He starts casting 2 incantations at once, Pilance Insinis and Equilance Cascadia. Grim gets shocked and asks what's happening, saying it's unbelievable that Lloyd is using 2 different advanced spells together. Grim notices a huge surge of magical energy. He thinks it's not safe to aim this powerful attack at anything, not even a target. Lloyd uses the magic, creating a massive magic circle, and aims the attack towards the sky. Meanwhile, inside the castle, an underling asked Prince Albert why he is giving so much attention to the 7th prince. Albert replies that they didn't recognize talent. He explains Lloyd's fireball grazed all the targets in the same way because he did it intentionally. Albert believes Lloyd is a prodigy, and he might become a grand sage someday, and he thinks that Lloyd would be a great asset to him someday. The other underling says it isn't surprising that Prince Albert could obtain the service of a grand sage. Albert denies this, saying he just wants to get along with his brother. He mentions that Lloyd might have already hit all the targets by now. The first underling thinks this is an exaggeration. Looking out the window, he asks if the sun has already gone down. Meanwhile, Grim was surprised by Lloyd's attack. He says, Lloyd blew a hole in the sky, and now night is shining through. Lloyd looks at the sky and starts panicking. Grim is amazed, thinking what's going on with Lloyd. Next day, Grim is reading the newspaper, where it mentions a mysterious hole in the heavens. Is it bizarre weather or a bad omen? He shows it to Lloyd and mentions that his yesterday's stunt is in the news. Lloyd says he was panicked for a moment there. Suddenly, he notices something on the newspaper and points out a news article about an adventure company that cleared a difficult dungeon and brought back powerful items. Lloyd suggests they should go to a dungeon, but Grim reminds him that he can't leave because everyone will freak out if they don't see him in the castle. Lloyd says to him that a little magic and ingenuity will take care of that. Then Lloyd uses a spell to turn an acorn into a perfect replica of himself. Grim is amazed by the magic and says it's incredible, and the replica looks exactly like Prince Lloyd. Lloyd says this replica looks exactly like the real thing, not just in how it looks, but also in the way its resin bones and skin mimic the real ones. And even the roots act as a model of the circulatory system. It can even make some simple movements by itself. Grim thinks having a double like this could help him escape, but Lloyd denies it, saying if it were that easy, he would have done it already. As the real problem is Silpha. Lloyd says that Silpha notices everything about him, as she noticed that he has grown by about 0.07 millimeters recently. He doubts he can fool her with a copy that can only act silly, which is why he left Grim with the replica. Lloyd leaves the castle by flying. While flying, he asks Grim if he can hear him. Grim replies that he can, and the picture is clear through his one eye too. Lloyd asks how things are going on Grim's end. Grim says he's not sure, but he thinks things are going fine. The maids notice Lloyd and say that the prince is paying more attention to his looks today, and his collar isn't turned up like usual, and they find him really cute. Grim thinks that Lloyd doesn't seem to understand when to stop, as he was putting Grim's mind into the doll and then attaching his body separately. Lloyd asks Grim to keep an eye on Silpha and act like him. Grim agrees, and he finds the puppet amazing, which also has mana circulation. Grim feels relieved that Lloyd is out of the picture, so he can do what he wants without interruptions. Lloyd tells Grim that he's really happy to have him as his familiar, and he's counting on him. Grim tells Lloyd not to worry about it, just go and come back quickly. Lloyd realizes that he left the castle without any trouble, but he doesn't know where the dungeon is. Suddenly, he sees a girl being chased by monsters. The girl fights back with bare hands against the monsters and defeats them all. Lloyd notices how she's breathing and thinks she must be a skilled martial artist. Lloyd says he read in a book that in foreign countries, people use an energy called ki through their bodies by breathing to perform amazing techniques. The girl sees Lloyd hiding and asks who he is. Lloyd is surprised that she was able to see him from far away. He decides to ask her about the dungeon and key. Grim warns Lloyd that if he goes out now, he'll be recognized as the 7th Prince of Saloon. The girl sees him as an enemy because Lloyd didn't respond. She quickly moves towards Lloyd, ready to attack. Lloyd changes his appearance and introduces himself as Robert, saying he is a rookie adventurer. The girl is shocked by his looks. Lloyd used a magic spell to change how he looked, but he could only transform into people he had seen before. Lloyd combined 2 spells which he learned from Grim to create a completely new form that nobody had seen before. In one hand, Lloyd held his original appearance, and in the other hand, he had Albert's body. By merging these, he created a unique body. She says her name is Tao, and she is a B-rank adventurer. Lloyd asks Grim if she had noticed anything suspicious, but Grim says it doesn't seem like that. Tao finds Lloyd hot, and thinks that she has spent 18 years training before leaving her martial arts school hoping to meet someone. She has been disappointed because guys always liked delicate girls, but now she felt lucky. She decides Lloyd would be her boyfriend. Lloyd suggests clearing a dungeon together, and Tao instantly agrees. They enter a dungeon, and Tao starts showing off her skills. She asks Lloyd if he sees how strong she is, and if he has fallen for her because of it. Meanwhile, Lloyd is busy collecting glowing rocks, not paying attention to Tao. Lloyd asks Tao if she is adventuring alone, and she says yes, as she hasn't found any good men yet. But Grim wonders why Tao has chosen Lloyd. While eating, Lloyd, who is transformed into Robert, asks Tao if she uses ki when she attacks the monsters. Tao asks if Robert knows about ki, because not many people on the continent are familiar with it. Lloyd explains that ki is similar to mana and magic, and how her breathing is important to use ki. Tao is impressed to see that Robert noticed her using this. She explains that her training revolves around breathing and using it to circulate ki, which gives her extraordinary power. Tao says that feeling the ki in her body takes a lot of practice, but she has a feeling that he'll be able to use it easily. Robert starts practicing breathing. Tao notices it when Robert seems to be struggling. She asks him if he is just doing ki breathing. Robert agrees and says he's trying to copy the way she did it, but it's pretty hard. Tao is amazed but explains that if he is not used to it, ki breathing can make his lungs feel like they're on fire. However, Robert feels a separate energy in his body from mana. Robert believes in himself that he can use this power, and it will be useful for magic. Tao is impressed and offers to teach Robert more about ki. Robert thanks Tao, and she asks him to keep up the breathing until they leave the dungeon. Meanwhile, Grim starts thinking that Lloyd is weird. He's living the good life, but he doesn't care about any of it, and he only shows interest in studying magic. Silpha finds Lloyd and walks near him, without realizing it is a clone. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Tao uses a powerful ki blast to defeat the dungeon boss, Grey Wolf. They decide to open the treasure chest now as the boss is finished. Tao says that the treasure inside the undeveloped dungeon can't be too impressive. Robert finds it interesting that the treasure chest only opens after defeating the boss. Tao says that Robert seems more interested in the treasure. Robert becomes curious about what's inside. Tao notices that Robert is trying to learn ki breathing quickly, and thinks maybe she has found a winner for herself, and her grandfather would approve him as her fiancé. Robert suggests opening the treasure, and Tao agrees, but she doubts there might be anything good in it. As they open the box, they're suddenly attacked by a powerful force that cuts through the ground. Suddenly, a lich comes out from under the box. Robert asks if it's a new boss. Tao says the boss monster is a lich. Robert asks Tao what type of creature a lich is. Tao reassures him and tells him to leave the dungeon. However, Robert wants to stay and watch. Tao then pushes Robert out of the dungeon using ki power, thinking it will keep him safe, but it may cause some damage. Now, the lich starts attacking Tao. She tries to dodge the attacks and is surprised to find that such a weak dungeon has a strong monster like a lich. She thinks that even a ranked adventurers would struggle against it. Then Tao decides to distract the monster to give Robert enough time to escape. Robert finds that Tao made him fly in the air to send him out of the dungeon, but he's still curious about ki in dungeons. He uses his magic barrier to stop there, and the magic barrier eliminates 2 small monsters. He wonders if it's a good idea to return to the dungeon when he doesn't know why Tao sent him away. He asks Grim what he thinks to clear things up, but Grim doesn't respond. He sounds scared and asks Lloyd to come home soon to help him. Meanwhile, Tao gets hurt while fighting with the lich monster. She realizes she can't win and may be eliminated soon. Then she thinks that Robert might have escaped, so maybe she should also try to escape. The lich found that Tao is using ki techniques, which are a kind of foreign magic. He mentions that he has eaten someone with similar abilities before, but he thought it was just a lower form of magic. He explains that by eating the souls of adventurers, he gained his wisdom and skills. The lich tells Tao that she wasn't worth eating, but he mentions that Robert reacted quickly to his attack. Tao replies that he and Robert are different. She feels Robert even finds something interesting about a small pebble on the road, which makes her happy. She mentions that people on the continent don't value ki techniques much, but Robert got impressed after knowing about it. Lich asks her why he should care. Then Tao uses her ki techniques to attack him, but a barrier protects him. Lich says it's a waste of time, but Tao continues to attack and says she also doesn't care. Since she was 5 years old, every day she has been training to use ki power. No matter if it rained or snowed, she focused only on training, doing nothing else like getting a boyfriend. She unleashes a full power ki blast at close range and breaks through Lich's barrier, warning him not to mess with her. However, she feels tired and realizes that she can't keep it up because she has used too much ki. She couldn't move at all, not even her finger. She is shocked to see that the powerful attack she used didn't even scratch the lich, and realizes he is a powerful monster. Lich says that her skills are weak compared to his, and mentions that she has wasted her life trying to fight him. Then, the lich uses a powerful attack on her, but Robert arrives and saves her, asking her if she is giving up. He says to Tao that he is taking over the fight because he needs to return home as soon as possible, and he will defeat the lich quickly. Tao asks Robert if it is a barrier and why he is there. Robert suddenly appears behind the lich using a spell, When the lich sees this, he gets shocked and asks if Robert just used an air class spell, Full Sprint, which is very fast. The lich is surprised because it is not possible without incantation. Then lich tries to attack Robert, but Robert makes a strong protective shield around himself. Robert thinks of combining ki and mana at the same time. Lich is surprised as he is not able to break his barrier. Robert feels like he is getting closer to figuring something out. He remembers that Tao told him to focus, so he takes a deep breath and uses the Full Sprint spell again. Lich attacks him again, but it doesn't make a single scratch. Robert broke his own barrier as it was getting in his way of activating his ki. Lich thinks Robert's barrier was broken due to his magic and starts attacking him. But Tao notices that Robert broke the barrier himself to get more air and become stronger. Robert begins combining ki and mana while dodging the lich's attacks. He uses the combination of ki and mana to counter the lich's attack. He realizes it wasn't strong enough to reach Lich and thinks that the magic needed to be thinner to travel farther. Robert starts attacking, but Lich uses his magic to protect himself. However, Robert keeps attacking over and over again. Instead of getting scared, Robert seems to be enjoying the fight and says that he still has more ideas to try out. He asks Lich to let him enjoy the fight. Then Lich notices that Robert is attacking very fast without even using incantation, and he wonders if these are the key techniques. Lich is surprised because he thought Robert was a mage, and he couldn't understand how these simple key techniques could match his sorcery. Now Robert has started making his attacks even faster and sharper. He attacks with powerful magic and cuts Lich with his barrier into 2 pieces, and the Lich disappears after being eliminated. Robert says he figured it out. After the fight, Tao and Robert go back to the treasure chest, where Tao says that this was a big waste of time as inside the treasure chest they found a knife. Tao felt disappointed, saying all that trouble, and this is all they got. Robert thought the knife might be enchanted with mana. She doubts about the enchantment if it's good or not. Robert asks her if he can keep the knife, and Tao agrees. Suddenly, Robert notices the treasure chest sinking down and asks what is happening. Tao explains that this is what happens when the treasure is taken, and the dungeon starts to fall apart. Then Robert says it's similar to a lizard detaching its tail to survive. He explains that the treasure chest is the core of a dungeon, which grows slowly around magical items dropped by people. When adventurers fail to defeat the dungeon, it absorbs their gear and grows stronger. And when it seems like the dungeon will be cleared, it offers one of the items it absorbed to escape. Robert finds this survival mechanism fascinating. Tao doesn't seem interested and asks to run because the dungeon is collapsing. Robert quickly grabs the treasure chest, and they leave the dungeon before it closes. Robert talks about how dungeons gather strength underground and become dungeons again. Tao comes to know that Robert is an incredible mage. She asks him why he used key techniques instead of magic in the fight. She wonders if he did it for her, or if he was teasing her. Robert says he thought it would be fun. Then Robert realizes that he forgot about going back home and flies away from there. Tao tells Robert about the special move he used at the end, called the Keyblade, and she thinks even she couldn't use it properly yet. Tao decides to train more to become a fascinating girl. Robert thinks that's a great idea and mentions he always enjoys improving himself, whether it's magic or key techniques. He suggests they should improve together and leaves from there. Tao then says she needs to work on herself so she could catch Robert's attention, but she realizes he hasn't told her where he lives, so she screams out, asking him to let her know how to find him. Robert transforms back into Lloyd and returns to the castle. He enters through a window and asks Grim if he is okay. Inside, Grim is badly bitten, thinking about Silpha and explaining what has happened. Grim tells Lloyd that while training, Silpha found him too weak and punished him. He sadly mentions that despite being a demon, he doesn't stand a chance against her. Grim tearfully complains to Lloyd that he had promised to come back quickly. Lloyd apologizes to him. After some time, Grim asks Lloyd if he was late because of the useless knife. Lloyd says sorry again, and tells him that the knife is very special as it is enhanced. Then he puts the knife in hot water and removes a layer to reveal mana essence, which is used for enchantment magic. This means anyone can write magic formulas on the weapon to make it stronger. Lloyd guesses the knife has been enchanted to boost power. Grim asks Lloyd if he can study enchantment magic too, but Lloyd says it's not that easy. He does some experiments and finds that magic words should be written in an order so that it can work. If done wrongly, then it will fail and both the essence and the weapon are wasted. He uses a water class spell and says that they're going to analyze the magic essence and make some themselves. He explains that usually water spells are used to purify dirty water, but if they keep making it purer, it can separate all the base elements. Lloyd finally finds that it's made from oil, silver, and hematite. Then Grim says hematite is made from powdering a monster's core, and that's plenty rare. Lloyd says they have the dungeon's core, and he can make some from it. Both get excited and say now they need to get oil, silver, and make a lot of weapons. Lloyd goes to get silver coins from his father. His father asks if he's sure he doesn't want gold instead, but Lloyd says silver is okay. His father thinks Lloyd is humble and wonders what he'll spend the money on. Lloyd starts melting the silver with Grimm's magic. Then, Lloyd needs to defeat Silpha to get some oil. He uses magic to run faster, but Silpha still outsmarts him because she can catch him. Then Lloyd tries another magic spell, but Silpha hides and defeats him. Even though Silpha wins, she still gives Lloyd the oil. Lloyd asks if she's sure because he was supposed to only get it if he wins. Silpha says it's okay, and she's actually happy. She thinks the other day Lloyd performed poorly might be because he was having a bad day, but now she realizes it was just a fluke. Grimm, looking outside from the window, says even though he is not using magic, he's shocked she defeated him. Silpha starts thinking that Lloyd is so skilled with both magic and a sword at just 10 years old, and he could become a top knight commander when he grows up, and maybe even too good for the rank of a swordmaster. Lloyd heads out from there, promising her to fight once he's finished his work. Silpha hopes whatever he's cooking turns out great. Lloyd starts mixing silver, oil, and hematite to make mana essence. Lloyd then goes to Albert and asks for weapons to try out enhancing them. Albert jokingly says it's a cute request, and asks if Lloyd really loves magic. Lloyd confirms that he does, and mentions that since Albert has a lot of royal guards, he thought he might have some spare weapons. Albert asks his guards if anyone is willing to let Lloyd strengthen their weapon. The guards take out all their swords, but they are hesitant because enchantment magic is difficult and doesn't always work well, and also they were talking about letting a 10-year-old do it. One guard says that they are giving something they need to work on to a kid to play with it. Grimm says loudly that now they have the weapons, they're gonna make them even more powerful by enchanting them a lot. Grimm notices that Lloyd is adding 3 layers of boost power on a sword, and he's filling every available spot with spell formulas. Lloyd breaks the sword while enhancing it because he puts too many spells on it. He feels bad because the steel couldn't handle the magic. Grimm tells him that this is just the beginning and cheers him up. Lloyd fails so many times but eventually succeeds. He gets happy to see it worked. Grimm says he knew Lloyd could do it. Lloyd thinks it was really amazing. The next day, Lloyd shows the improved weapons to Albert and apologizes for wasting 70 out of 120. But Albert is surprised to see that 50 swords were successful. Lloyd thought he would have succeeded with 80 swords, but he added more spells and failed. Albert is shocked to see the sword, and thinks that top enchanters only have a success rate of 10%, and Lloyd did it better. Albert finds that Lloyd might be even more talented than he realizes. Then a guard asks another one if it's really amazing. Another guard disagrees, believing it's obviously not true. They think Lloyd probably stopped trying after ruining 70 swords, as the remaining 50 look normal, and wonder even if the sword is sharper now. When the guard tries to put the sword in its sheath, it cuts into 2 pieces. Then Albert is surprised to see a highly enhanced sword. Lloyd says he hopes to see them used in battle if possible. Albert agrees and asks if Lloyd wants to come along with him, as their father has a task for him to go on a monster hunt, and Lloyd gets happy after hearing that. In the next morning, Lloyd, Albert, Silpha, and some guards are on their way to hunt monsters. While they are halfway there, Lloyd asks Silpha if the monsters are in these woods. Silpha says no, as she has heard they are near the lake further down the road. Lloyd understands, and Silpha asks if he is excited about it. And Lloyd agrees because he doesn't often get to leave the castle, and he also wants to see how well his enchanted weapons work. Albert asks Silpha if she ever lets Lloyd out of her sight. Silpha replies that she's thankful to him for letting her go with them. Albert agrees, saying it's obvious as she's Lloyd's teacher and bodyguard. He says that he's sure she would have missed Lloyd. Silpha agrees, saying she's his teacher. Then Albert sarcastically asks if Silpha has any other, maybe more special feelings for Lloyd. But Silpha gets offended and scares him by pulling out her sword, but Albert quickly says he was joking. Silpha feels something strange and says, "Looks like they have guests," and the guards also confirm it's an enemy attack, who are armed with steel weapons. One guard tells that it's a good warm-up for them to fight these creatures and orders everyone to defend Prince Albert. Lloyd says he's scared, but Grimm's tells him that he knows that he has already sensed them. Then Lloyd explains a special technique called spectral detection, which is taught by Tao. It lets him sense things around him by using key breathing. It's a basic skill, but very useful. Grimm thinks Lloyd is becoming more scary every day, as he always has spectral detection and a protective barrier active. The monsters and guards start fighting, but the guards are surprised because their weapons are unusually sharp, mentioning that it feels like cutting through steel equipment like paper. Lloyd finds that his enchanted magic has worked. He notices how amazed and scared the guards are, feeling like kids with dangerous toys for the first time. After the fight finishes, Albert points out that it's all because of Lloyd's magic of enchanting weapons. He further says says that he is proud of him, as he is also amazed to see the enchanted weapons. Silpha agrees and calls Lloyd wonderful. However, Lloyd is pretty sure he didn't enchant Silpha's weapon. Suddenly, a creature appears and tries to attack them, but then Tao arrives and defeats the creature. She explains that she felt the presence of the creature and rushed to help, and then she introduces herself as Tao the adventurer. Lloyd is surprised to see her and accidentally calls her by her name, Tao. He instantly realizes that he almost called her as Robert does, as he never thought she would show up like this. Tao then asks Lloyd if he's practicing key breathing. She mentions sensing Robert and notices that Lloyd looks a bit like him. Out of nowhere, a creature tries to attack Tao from behind, but in the meantime, Silpha steps in to stop it. She appreciates Tao's help, but also reminds her not to get in the way while she's dealing with it. She also warns Tao not to get too friendly with Prince Lloyd. Then Tao explains that she also sensed the creature behind her and advises Silpha not to underestimate her techniques. Albert interrupts them and thanks Tao for her help. He then suggests Tao join them on their way to the lake. At the lake, Albert thanks Tao for helping them, and then he introduces himself as Albert, the second prince of Saloum. Tao gets nervous upon hearing that he is a prince, and apologizes to Albert if she said anything wrong. She notices that Albert and Robert look similar, but she doesn't think that Albert is the person she was sensing earlier. Albert asks if he looks like someone she knows, and Tao wonders where the kid she met before went. Albert asks if she's referring to Lloyd. Meanwhile, Lloyd thinks that he made a mistake by using spectral detection, and Tao noticed more than he expected. Grimm's warns him that stopping now would be suspicious. Lloyd feels stuck and decides to hide in a tent until the monster comes. Inside the tent, he finds Silpha changing her clothes and asks her why she's there. Silpha explains there was monster tomato juice on her, so she wanted to change. Then Lloyd asks why she's changing in his tent. Silpha says it's because she'll be sleeping there tonight, since all the guards outside belong to Prince Albert, and she's the only one protecting him. Lloyd suggests he can take care of himself, but she grabs him between her legs considering Tao as a threat for him. Suddenly, Tao comes in saying she thought she felt Robert nearby, but when she saw Silpha sitting on Lloyd, she asked what Silpha was doing. In response, Silpha threw a knife at Tao, but Tao caught it. Then Silpha calls Tao an idiot. This made Tao angry, and she accused Silpha of being a perverted maid. Silpha then tells Tao to stop giving Lloyd inappropriate looks, but Tao denies that she is not doing that. Meanwhile, Lloyd sneaks away and thinks it's gonna be more suffocating than the castle. Then Albert sarcastically calls Lloyd a lady killer, but Lloyd wonders why. Albert mentions that Silpha has changed since she started taking care of Lloyd. Meanwhile, Silpha asks Tao why she is even there, to which Tao replies that she senses creatures while she is working. Silpha wonders if Tao's claim is true. Albert tells Lloyd that Silpha looks at him like a woman looks at a man. Grimm tells Lloyd he's a hit with girls. Then Albert advises him to be cautious because relationships with women can be tricky. When Silpha and Tao start arguing, the guards suggest fighting instead, but Silpha and Tao feel insulted and take down the guards in a short time. Then Tao tells Silpha that she was hired to repair an old shrine on top of a hill. Silpha sarcastically tells Tao to hurry along. Then Tao angrily responds that she doesn't need to tell what she had to do. Albert intervenes, saying it's risky to go alone and praises Tao's ability to sense danger. He suggests Tao stay with their group until morning and act as a lookout. Suddenly, a beowulf shows up, and seeing the monster, everyone gets ready to fight. Meanwhile, Lloyd is not scared at all as he thinks the monster is cool. Then the guards tell everyone to stay back and watch for a chance to attack. Meanwhile, Silpha tells Lloyd to stay behind her to stay safe. Lloyd is amazed to see how fast the beowulf is, even though he is huge. He asks Grimm if he's right, but Grimm is distracted by something at the top of a hill, and looking at the hill, Grimm wonders if it's a collapsed shrine. Meanwhile, Tao is fighting well and helping the guards. Then Albert steps up and pulls out his sword, which Lloyd enchanted to make it super powerful. He tells the monster that he's not fighting because he hates it, but because it's causing trouble for the villages. Then he uses a special attack called Pelance Insinis and takes down the beowulf in one hit. Everyone starts cheering for Albert, and they are amazed to see how strong he is. But Albert gives credit to Lloyd, saying that it's all because of Lloyd's enchantment on his sword. Lloyd is happy to see that his enchantment works so well. But then Grimm interrupts, telling Lloyd to forget about that because he remembered something important, and tells him that there's a demon sealed in the shrine on top of the hill. Meanwhile, Beowulf stands up again, which surprises Albert. He wonders how the monster he just defeated is still standing. But then, he notices that more monsters are around and wonders where they came from. Suddenly, a voice comes from Beowulf, calling them morons. It's a demon named Pazuzu. He introduces himself to them and warns that they all have to pay for harming his minions. Albert and Tao are shocked to see a demon inside Beowulf's mouth. Meanwhile, Pazuzu commands the monsters to attack. But when Albert and Tao try to fight back, they notice something strange. The monsters heal instantly after being attacked. Albert realizes that these monsters are much different from the ones he's faced before, as some even seem like mixed breeds. He suspects that the demon Pazuzu is controlling them from behind. Then Lloyd asks Grimm if Pazuzu is the demon who was trapped in the shrine and broke it out. He further asks Grimm if he knows Pazuzu because they're both demons. Grimm says no, but he explains that Pazuzu is using his magic to control the monsters, which he compares to using strings of magic to control them like puppets. And because of this, the monsters think Pazuzu is their leader. Grimm also says that Pazuzu can also give them magic energy using mana transmutation, which makes them heal quickly. And unless they defeat Pazuzu, the monsters won't stop. Hearing this, Lloyd gets excited and asks Grimm to teach him this magic. But Grimm thinks it's not the right time because everyone is fighting for their lives. Lloyd insists, but Grimm is still unsure what to do. Meanwhile, Grimm starts teaching Lloyd about mana manipulation, mentioning that Pazuzu is proficient at it, and with its help, he controls the monsters. Grimm tells Lloyd that manipulating mana is tricky, and they will start with simple tasks like adding color and scent. However, Lloyd easily manages to make his mana pink, shaped like a flower, and adds a scent. Grimm is impressed by Lloyd's quick progress. Back in the fight, Pazuzu wonders how Silpha is so skilled in battle. Meanwhile, Silpha asks a guard if she can borrow his sword. Seeing Silpha's impressive fighting, Pazuzu wonders if she's just a babysitter, as he is amazed by her flawless defense. But Silpha gets excited by knowing that the sword she borrowed is enchanted by Prince Lloyd and is proud of him. Curious about Lloyd's connection to Silpha, Pazuzu decides to dissect Lloyd to understand more, and he will examine his organs. Pazuzu moves so fast and then attacks Silpha, and also succeeds in devouring her. But Silpha cuts Pazuzu in half, revealing her intense fighting spirit. Then she uses her sword technique, Twin Dragons Rising, and tears apart the Beowulf. She then uses the double tiger claw and fang technique and defeated the monster. Pazuzu then emerged from the Beowulf. Everyone is shocked to see Silpha in her fighting mode. Lloyd sees how Silpha looks when she gets serious, and then he memorizes it and makes a doll with his colored mana. Silpha approaches Pazuzu, saying that even touching Prince Lloyd is enough to make her laugh. The only thing Pazuzu is fit to feel is her master's blade. Silpha then tells Pazuzu to make his peace. Suddenly, all the monsters start coming back to life, and then Pazuzu releases miasma from his mouth. Albert and Tao start fighting the monsters, but a guard wonders how monsters are still alive as they are already beaten. Albert explains to the guards that they need to defeat the demon, otherwise the monsters will keep regenerating. Then he suggests that they should go help Silpha, but they all collapse when they breathe the miasma. Pazuzu mentions that it's been a long time since he unleashed his minions, and he can't believe they're being defeated so easily. Then he attacks Silpha with a strong move. Seeing this, Albert tries to stand up, but he can't due to the miasma. Pazuzu reveals that anyone who breathes in the miasma will be under his control, and it's called the miasma of domination. Meanwhile, Silpha sarcastically mentions his bad smell, but Pazuzu gets angry hearing this and attacks her again. However, Tao steps in to protect her. Silpha tells Tao to mind her own business, mentioning she is fine, but Tao doesn't believe her and tells her to run if she can. Silpha suggests Tao should run to Prince Lloyd instead, and then she falls. After seeing this, Pazuzu mentions Silpha's strength for resisting him despite breathing his dangerous miasma. He's surprised that Tao isn't under his control and wonders why. Tao tries to attack Pazuzu, but he easily stops her and notices she's using a special breathing technique to resist inhaling the miasma. However, Tao realizes her breathing is becoming difficult now. Pazuzu asks why she hasn't run away if she can still move, and asks her if she wants to become his servant. Tao fights back against Pazuzu, telling him to go away. She says she couldn't leave someone in trouble, and then uses a powerful attack called Thunderquake Pulse on Pazuzu. However, she realizes she has used too much energy, and now needs to calm down before Pazuzu could attack back. Suddenly, Pazuzu's minion attacks Tao, and she is surprised to see that the minions have already healed from their injuries. Pazuzu asks Tao who she is talking about when she mentions helping someone, as he only sees defeated enemies on the ground. He shows her his loyal minions, saying they always stood up for him, and asks if that isn't true loyalty. Then Pazuzu uses his power to control her. He asks her if she still doesn't want to serve him and give him her whole life. Tao realizes that she has not mistaken because she feels Robert's presence nearby. Even though there's a lot of bad energy around from Pazuzu, she can still sense Robert, and it gives her strength. When Pazuzu asks who she's referring to, Tao boldly says that he is Robert, who is the most amazing guy, and he is on his way to defeat Pazuzu. Then suddenly, the minion devours her. Pazuzu mentions how sad it is to be human and incapable of understanding his devilish charm. Pazuzu moves to Silpha and thinks she needs to pay him. He believes she would be a good addition to his minions, even though it might take some effort to control her. And then Pazuzu plans to use his power to make her serve him until she dies. Then Lloyd tells Pazuzu that's how he got the Bearwolves to obey him. Pazuzu admits that and tells him he killed their parents and manipulated the young Bearwolves with his powers. Lloyd finds Pazuzu's actions terrible, but suddenly Pazuzu realizes that Lloyd can still move freely within his powers. Pazuzu asks Lloyd if he thinks he can just walk in the miasma of domination. Then he notices Grim and wonders if Grim is actually a demon. He asks Grim if he's protecting Lloyd. Pazuzu is shocked that a demon would serve a human, and asks Grim why he looks so disgusted. He accuses Grim of being a disgrace to their kind. Grim gets angry and tells Pazuzu that he had considered giving him advice as a fellow demon, but now he just wants to see Pazuzu fail. Pazuzu refuses to listen and orders his minions to attack. Lloyd thinks it's the perfect time to try his mana transmutation. Grim warns him that there are a lot of monsters around, so he'll need to use a lot of mana for it. Lloyd then uses his mana transmutation, but Pazuzu is shocked to see his minions transformed into cute little creatures in a field of flowers. Lloyd tells him that he has removed Pazuzu's control over the Bearwolves. He is also amazed at how well his mana transmutation worked. Then he is surprised at how fluffy the creatures are. Grim tells that all the monsters are now completely taken with Lloyd's mana. Lloyd asks if Grim is affected too. Lloyd then approaches a minion and asks him to split Tao. Then he finds out that Tao is okay. Pazuzu is amazed at Lloyd's ability to turn mana into a field of flowers so quickly, and thinks Lloyd must be an incredible sorcerer. Then Pazuzu uses his miasma to command his minions to wake up. But Grim informs Pazuzu that his minions already remembered something, their pride as monsters and the fact that Pazuzu killed their parents. Then the monsters turn against Pazuzu and attack him. Lloyd is surprised by the monsters' coordinated attack and realizes that they are much stronger than he thought. Despite this, Pazuzu fights back and insults the monsters by calling them mangy mutts and flea-bitten wastes. He reminds them that he is the one who raised them, and now they're only attacking him because he killed their parents. Pazuzu then taunts Lloyd, saying that it doesn't matter what spells he tries as they won't work on a demon like him. Then Lloyd and Grim start talking about demons and magic. Grim says demons can't be killed by magic as it's never happened before. Meanwhile, Pazuzu gets angry and says that the moment he stops giving mana to his minions, he becomes more powerful. Suddenly, the field of flowers that Lloyd created gets destroyed. Lloyd finds it interesting and wonders why demons don't die easily, and what it would take to kill the demon. Then Grim tells Pazuzu why his mana didn't affect Lloyd. Lloyd hides his mana to avoid standing out, and it's hard work to keep it restrained all the time. Grim then tells him that even his strong mana wouldn't be enough to affect Lloyd. Lloyd says he has many spells he wants to try, and he's excited to test them. He tells Pazuzu that, with him, he can use his magic without holding back. Pazuzu is surprised to see how much mana Lloyd has, and wonders if he's still in a nightmare. Lloyd tries to trap Pazuzu in a barrier, but Pazuzu escapes and wonders why Lloyd tried to trap him, and when Lloyd even enchanted the spell. Pazuzu realizes that Lloyd isn't trying to fight, but he is trying to put him in a cage. Lloyd tries to trap Pazuzu with barriers, but Pazuzu escapes them easily. Pazuzu gets scared, but thinks he could dodge Lloyd's spells because he's amazing. Then Lloyd says he could cast around 20 spells at once, and even more with Grim's help. He casts many spells, but Pazuzu barely escapes. Lloyd then uses his dimensional enclosure to catch Pazuzu in a barrier, and this time he succeeds. Pazuzu asks Lloyd what he is going to do with him now, as he is worried that Lloyd might turn him into a lab animal. He calls Lloyd a psychotic sorcerer and begs to be freed. Lloyd is confused because magic didn't work on Pazuzu. Then he accuses Pazuzu of doing experiments on bearwolves that changed them into different creatures. Lloyd tells Pazuzu to stop squirming, assuming that he may have already done many experiments. Pazuzu gets really mad and asks Lloyd how he dares to compare him to others, as he sees himself as the top demon who will also rule the whole world. Pazuzu tells Lloyd that he's never faced magic like Lloyd's before, and there is also a chance he could even die from it. However, Lloyd starts casting many powerful spells one after another. Pazuzu asks for a moment, but Lloyd keeps casting as he estimates to enchant about 240 spells a minute. He decides to keep it up for 30 minutes. But then he sees Pazuzu and gets worried that he might have died. Then Grim explains that while magic doesn't usually affect demons much, Lloyd's constant barrage can cause stress over time. Lloyd opens the barriers to see what happened. Meanwhile, Pazuzu thinks he spent a long time raising monsters and planning to rule the world. But why everything falls apart so easily? After hearing all that, Lloyd just goes like, huh. Suddenly, Albert and everyone else start waking up. And Lloyd realizes that everyone's waking up. So now he needs to come up with an excuse. Then Grim tells Pazuzu people don't want leaders who complain all the time. He says he likes Lloyd because Lloyd does what he enjoys in his own way. He then tells Pazuzu that he is just gathering strength for revenge against Lloyd. Pazuzu laughs and says he lost because he wasn't having enough fun. And then Pazuzu tells Grim that he trusts his ambition. Grim devours Pazuzu and gains incredible power, feeling that his mana has been restored a bit, making his revenge easier. Lloyd starts making excuses, saying a sorcerer named Robert came and defeated the demon to save everyone. Tao hears Robert's name and gets excited and asks if Robert is around. Meanwhile, Grim thinks that he couldn't beat Lloyd yet. Then Prince Albert, Lloyd, and Silpha return to the castle after defeating the monster, where people are cheering for them. At the castle, the king praises Albert for defeating the demon and dealing with the monster. He says he is impressed, but questions Albert about his decision to go with only his guards. Albert admits it and says he has no excuse. The king then asks where the adventurers who helped them are. Albert says Robert disappeared before they woke up, and Tao ran after him before he could thank her. Then the king acknowledges that Robert and Tao saved everyone, and he is more interested in Robert's strength. Albert tells the king that he thinks Lloyd did the most important work during their hunt against monsters, and he believes that Lloyd should be part of the royal family's succession because Lloyd's magical enchantment on their weapons protected them from harm. Albert thinks Lloyd is very talented and hardworking, so he also deserves to be king. But the king worries that making Lloyd part of the succession might create competition for Albert. But Albert says if he isn't the best choice to rule the kingdom, then it's okay, as he thinks the kingdom's welfare is more important than anything else, and he doesn't see why Lloyd's age should exclude him from consideration. The king asks if Lloyd wants to take part in the race for the throne, but Lloyd just refuses it. The next morning, Lloyd is playing with a beowulf. He is surprised that one of Pazuzu's minions followed them home, while the others stayed in the woods. Lloyd says the beowulf is getting fluffier and cuter. Then Grim wonders why he didn't get the same reaction and make himself fluffy. Grim then says Lloyd's magic made the beowulf very tame, and Lloyd tells Grim fluffy too. Grim explains that Lloyd's magic calmed down the other beowulfs, so they shouldn't cause any problems. Then Silpha arrives and says the beowulf seems to like Lloyd a lot. Lloyd tells Silpha that he named it Shiro because of its color, which Silpha thinks is a good choice. Then Lloyd tells Silpha that he wants to teach the beowulf many things, but he's unsure how to communicate effectively with him. Silpha informs him that complicated instructions are usually for monster tamers. Meanwhile, Grim wonders why Lloyd isn't interested in becoming king. Silpha mentions that she has heard about controlling monsters with mana, which Lloyd also finds fun, and says he will also give it a try. Meanwhile, Grim thinks that Lloyd only cares about magic. Silpha reassures Lloyd that she believes in him. She tells Lloyd that Prince Albert also thinks that Lloyd will have no trouble commanding the monsters. Elsewhere, the king and Albert notice Lloyd's humility. The king thinks Lloyd is too modest, but Albert believes kingship might be a minor role for Lloyd. Then the king expresses excitement about Lloyd's future. Meanwhile, Lloyd teaches Shiro how to sit, shake hands, and stand up. Silpha is also impressed by Lloyd. Then, Lloyd says that Shiro learns simple commands quickly, but he is not sure what will happen if he asks Shiro to do some complex things, like spinning around 3 times, or barking in different ways, and other things. He is not sure how to make Shiro understand such complicated instructions easily. He tells Silpha that he is trying to send a command spell using his mana to Shiro, but Shiro doesn't understand it and gets confused. Then he says he hopes he can find someone who knows a lot about monsters, maybe an expert type to help him. Silpha replies that she knows someone, and she is pretty sure about it. She then suggests they should go to Princess Ali's garden tower. However, she's not sure if it's the best idea. Then they reach Princess Ali's garden tower. Grim thinks the tower is really something, and then he asks Lloyd who Alice is. Lloyd says that she is his sister, the 6th princess of Saloum, and also that she is 3 years older than him. Lloyd further mentions that Alice loves all kinds of animals, not just cats and dogs, but also reptiles, birds, and even monsters, all of which she can keep in her tower. When Princess Alice sees Lloyd in her garden, she gets excited and hugs him, saying it's good to see him. Then she just kisses Lloyd, which shocks Silpha. Silpha then says it's an emergency, and now she has to revive Lloyd with a kiss. Eris comes there and asks Alice why she always kisses Lloyd when she sees him. Alice says, because he's cute. Then Alice asks what brings them there. Assuming it might be about the beowulf they have with them, Lloyd tells her the beowulf's name is Shiro, and says he's impressed that Alice recognizes Shiro as a beowulf so easily. Alice replies it's just instinct, as she believes that the mana thing has something to do with it. Silpha suggests to Lloyd that they should leave because she doesn't think Princess Alice understands the concept of mana. She also doubts that Alice could be able to explain how to communicate with monsters. However, Lloyd wants to wait a bit longer, and then asks Alice if she can show them one of her monsters. Alice replies that she has already called one. Then she introduces them to Liru, the lesser Fenrir. Grim is surprised because Liru is a higher class of beowulf. Lloyd is also amazed that Liru is able to slip past his presence detection easily. Then Alice returns the hairband Liru snatched from Silpha. However, Lloyd is still confused as he wonders when Alice gave the command to Liru. He realizes that the Fenrir knows to approach while their backs are turned. Lloyd thinks that if Alice might have told Liru to snatch Silpha's hairband without getting noticed, and thinks it must be a very complex order. He wonders how Alice manages it so easily, making him curious to find out more about it. Then Lloyd stands up and asks Alice to teach him how to communicate with Shiro. Alice tells him that it won't be easy, but Lloyd says that he likes to face challenges. Then Alice explains that the key to communicating with animals is love, but Lloyd wonders how, so Alice clarifies that if he loves them, then he can learn to understand any monster and communicate with them. To demonstrate, she commands monsters to come to her to show how it works. Meanwhile, Eris says Alice might be a prodigy or have a special charm with animals, but Alice disagrees, saying anyone could learn with the right feeling. Then Alice commands the animals to stick to Lloyd, Silpha, and Eris. Silpha suggests that they should go back on their way, doubting that love can help in this case. But when Silpha sees Lloyd with the animals, she wonders if Lloyd is showing interest in love. Then Silpha starts thinking Lloyd hugged her and tells her that she is always kind and warm. Silpha replies that it is only because of love, which Lloyd finds interesting. He asks her to teach him more, and Silpha eagerly agrees. Back to the present, Lloyd explains that he was giving Shiro direct orders, but his sister Alice doesn't command her animals instead. She shares her thoughts with them. Alice connects to animals with mana, giving them a vision of what she wants without speaking. When Lloyd learns that Alice shares her mental images instead of giving orders, he tries it too. Eris is surprised because Lloyd doesn't give commands, but Shiro follows Lloyd's mental images perfectly, which impresses Eris. She says that Lloyd is very talented. Silpha agrees, but says that it is a bit different from what she has imagined. Then Alice says it isn't about will or control, but it's all about love. Lloyd agrees, saying love is important and helps create a connection with the animals. Hearing this, Alice grabs Lloyd again, and all the animals stick to them because Alice is still connected to them. Lloyd reminds her to stop sharing her mana and asks Silpha and Eris to step back. When they are returning, Lloyd says, "That is a real mess," to which Silpha says she is so sorry for that, but Lloyd says that now he has started to figure out how to connect with monsters. Silpha is relieved and asks Lloyd to put the same effort into his sword training. In the meantime, Albert arrives there, saying he needs to talk to Lloyd. Silpha insists Lloyd needs to practice, but Albert argues that she shouldn't try to monopolize Lloyd. Lloyd asks Albert why he's there, and Albert says that he wants to introduce Lloyd to someone. Lloyd wonders who he is. Then Albert introduces him to his older brother Diane, who is the 4th prince of the kingdom. Diane asks Lloyd if he enchanted the spellbound sword, and Lloyd confirms it. But Diane doesn't believe and says he wants to see if Lloyd is really capable. Then Albert tells Lloyd about Diane that when Diane was 10, he went to a neighboring country, Bartram, which is known for smithing, and from there Diane got interested in enchanting. Lloyd says that he is also impressed by Diane's dedication to studying abroad for the kingdom, but then Diane cuts him off, saying it's not about him, and asks Lloyd to start enchanting enchanting, telling him that he already has all the necessary materials. Diane is surprised to see that Lloyd is enchanting a sword. Diane thinks enchantment is a very advanced skill, but he wonders how Lloyd is able to apply it to a spellbound sword, as that's beyond what they can do in Bartram. Diane thinks if Lloyd has started talking this nonsense in the 7 years since he last saw him, but then Lloyd shows the enchanted sword to Diane and asks, "How does that look?" Meanwhile, Albert thinks even an amateur can see that Lloyd's enchanting technique is unique, as it allows him to be both fast and precise. However, Diane is shocked to see the sword and asks Lloyd, "What kind of spell engraving is this?" As the sword has reinforced strength, elasticity, self-cleaning, and self-repair. Diane then gets impressed by Lloyd's enchanting and grabs him, saying that with Lloyd's help, he might actually achieve his dream of creating the ultimate spellbound sword. He says that when he forges the steel and Lloyd engraves the spell onto it, then it will become more advanced than usual, and this will create a super weapon that's only possible when an enchanter and a smith work together. Diane tells Lloyd that as a kid, he loved sorcery but didn't have the talent for it. However, spellbound swords are amazing because anyone can swing one like making flames spew out and wind blast forth. Diane expresses his dream and says he wants their country to be a place where everyone can use magic by wielding spellbound swords someday. Lloyd asks if that means people who can't use magic will be able to use it with spellbound swords. Then he thinks it wouldn't matter much to him, but he's interested in how they are made. Lloyd gets ready and asks Diane to start. Diane agrees and asks him to call the boss. Albert leaves from there, saying he has official business to attend. Now, Lloyd and Diane have started making enchanted weapons. Lloyd asks Diane what kind of magic sword they should use. Diane replies it should be a sword that shoots fire when anyone swings it, as what could be cooler than that? Then Lloyd suggests using Peelance and Sinnies, but Diane says it won't work because the casting formula for Peelance and Sinnies has 14 parts, and a spellbound sword can only hold 5 parts. Lloyd suggests compressing it down to 2 parts. Then he applies it, but the steel shatters. Lloyd wonders if the weight of Peelance and Sinnies is too much and thinks maybe they should compress it less, to 3 parts, or split it into 4. Then he tells Diane to try it again. Meanwhile, Silpha and Shiro watch them quietly. Lloyd tries many times to enchant the steel, but it keeps breaking. Then Silpha joins them, but it still keeps breaking. However, Lloyd apologizes, saying it is his fault, and that he has also wasted a lot of mana essence. But he wonders why it is still breaking, even though he reduced the spell to a simple fireball. Grimm finds it unusual for Lloyd to struggle so much. Diane tells Lloyd not to worry and promises to help until they succeed, even if it is so difficult. Grimm then gives Lloyd some mana essence, and Diane reassures Lloyd that they have a lot. Lloyd uses his spell Purifex to check the quality of the mana essence and finds it has very little hematide. This amount might be enough for regular enchanting, but a spellbound sword needs a lot more. Diane also realizes that they are using low-quality mana essence. Lloyd asks him if they have any hematide, which is made from the monster cores. Diane replies that they don't have it, as it is very rare. Lloyd thinks he might have to go hunt monsters in a dungeon to get hematide. Meanwhile, Silpha suggests that they could hunt monsters together now, but Lloyd remembers a past incident with Tao and asks Silpha how a prince like him can go to a dungeon. Silpha replies that she had discussed it with the king after their recent encounter with monsters, and he also thought it would be a good idea for Lloyd to explore and see more of the world. Silpha asks Lloyd if they should go to the first stop on any adventurer's journey. Then they head to an adventurer's guild where Katarina welcomes them and says she needs their details and the job they want to register under. Silpha tells him to write the truth, and Katarina says once they're done, place their hand on the crystal ball, which will measure their strengths and set their adventurer rank. Lloyd remembers using a similar crystal ball when he enrolls at the Magic Academy in his past life. It has a small amount of mana that radiates through the body when touched. Lloyd worries that touching it now might make it explode because of his strong mana, which would attract too much attention. He tries to compress his mana as small and faint as possible, like down to the size of a flea. When he touches it, Lloyd gets an overall rating of E, and everyone laughs at him, saying even the weakest adventurers usually get a D. But Katarina says it's remarkable because Lloyd's magic rating is an A, which is similar to an experienced sorcerer. Lloyd is surprised because he thought that he had reduced his mana to just 1% of its normal strength. Katarina assures everyone that Prince Lloyd is the most promising new adventurer since the Silver Blader. But then other adventurers ask if she's comparing Lloyd to the legendary Silver Blader, who conquers many dungeons and reaches a rank before mysteriously disappearing. They don't believe Lloyd. With his E rank, can he be compared to her? Silpha wants to go into the dungeon and do the quests, but Katerina says for that they need a skilled adventurer. Then Silpha plans to re-register, but a rude man interrupts, suggesting they should leave Lloyd behind and go on a dungeon date together. But Silpha gets angry and cuts off his mustache. Then Katerina reveals that Silpha is the famous Silver Blade adventurer, and everyone is shocked after hearing that. She then tells Silpha that re-registering will decrease her by 2 ranks. Suddenly, Tao appears and says, "Looks like someone needs help," and then she offers to help Lloyd. Silpha asks Lloyd to leave, but Tao stops her. Then Silpha asks Tao if she is always around them. Tao replies that she has been searching everywhere for Robert through every dungeon she could, but she could not find him. But she ended up getting strong enough to be a ranked. Tao then asks Silpha to introduce her to Prince Albert, so they can have a tea date in exchange for her help. Then Lloyd compliments Silpha for being a great adventurer. Silpha says she felt embarrassed because she used to be an adventurer, but she was immature back then. Then she mentions encountering dangerous enemies from the Assassin's Guild. Then Lloyd, Silpha, and Tao go to a random dungeon to find mana essence. Meanwhile at the castle, Albert asks Diane how things are going. Diane replies that everything is going smoothly, and mentions that Lloyd will be back soon with what they need. Then Albert says that it will still be a few more days. Diane then asks if there is going to be a war, but Albert reassures him, saying he brought them together because he wants them to get along like brothers again, and tells him that they don't need to worry about fighting. However, he acknowledges that if using spellbound swords could save even one person in the kingdom one day, then it would be wonderful. Then Albert asks Diane to continue his research on the swords, to which Diane agrees, saying that day might come sooner than Albert thought. In the meantime, Lloyd and Silpha return. Albert tells Diane that when he sees Lloyd smile, it makes him feel stronger, like he can do anything, because he thinks Lloyd's happiness takes away all his worries. When Diane tests the magical weapon, it works amazingly and gives off a powerful blast, shocking everyone. Seeing the damage caused by the blast, Lloyd admits he went a bit overboard and promises to be more careful next time. Later that night, Lloyd expresses his tiredness after doing a lot of work like gathering materials, creating magical items, and working on the mass production of weapons. He wonders if something important is about to happen. However, suddenly he notices something strange in the central garden and thinks it's like there's a gap in space. He thinks Shiro is usually observant, but he hasn't noticed it. Suddenly, a mysterious girl appears in the garden. The mysterious girl then tries to escape from there, but Lloyd appears and stops her by using his air class spell. He greets her and explains that he put up a barrier to make things easier. Lloyd then asks her to have a chat since she is technically trespassing. However, the girl uses a poison spell on Lloyd, but she informs him that she doesn't want to harm a kid. Lloyd starts to feel its effects and tries to heal himself with another health class spell called Purify, but it doesn't work. The girl tells him that nothing can purify her poison. Lloyd then realizes that Purify should work on all known poisons, so her poison must be an unknown one. He thinks that she's changing her poison with her special type of mana. The mysterious girl admits that Lloyd guesses correctly that she is a poison blighted, a rare person with dangerous abilities, and she is known as Ren the Poison Moth, because she has spread poison since birth. Ren then breaks Lloyd's barrier with one hit, which surprises Lloyd. He thinks she might have used her poison to make the barrier weak. Ren tells him that he will suffer from the poison for a few days but won't die. Then she leaves, saying goodbye. Lloyd realizes that Ren is really good at hiding her presence. Then Grimm shows up and asks if this is really the time to be impressed. Lloyd is surprised that Grimm is awake. Grimm gets worried about Lloyd and asks if he is going to be okay with the poison. Lloyd reassures him that he will be fine since he's using a healing spell called Healing Breath, which is gradually curing him. He says that the damage from Ren's poison isn't enough to outpace his healing. Grimm then asks why Lloyd didn't go after Ren if he could move. Lloyd explains that he thought it would be better to let her lead him to their hideout instead. Grimm gets confused and asks what hideout he's talking about. Then Lloyd remembers when Silpha tells him about a group called the Assassin's Guild at the Adventurers Guild, and he's pretty sure Ren is a member of the Assassin's Guild. Lloyd also remembers when Silpha describes the Assassin's Guild as a group of 6 members with bounties on their heads, and they are all skilled at hiding their presence. Also, each member has a special ability. Then Lloyd starts tracing Ren, by which he found the direction where Ren went. Grimm is impressed that Lloyd can track the nearly undetectable Ren and asks how he does it. Lloyd explains that the way Ren hides is like tearing a hole in space, and once anyone realizes that, it's easy to follow. He says that not leaving any trace is actually very conspicuous. Excited, Lloyd heads off to find her. But after Lloyd leaves, Silpha arrives and looks for Prince Lloyd, but finds no one there. Elsewhere, Galilea starts questioning Ren about getting found out and running off without eliminating Lloyd. Ren replies that Lloyd is just a kid and says that she discovered they are mass-producing spellbound swords, which are indicating a potential sign of war. Galilea tells her to stop acting like Jade and reminds her that their leader is long gone. But Ren insists that Jade will come back. Then Talia interrupts and warns them that they are being watched. Then Lloyd appears, saying they caught him. However, Ren finds it impossible that Lloyd has tracked her down even after being poisoned. Galilea realizes that the kid Ren mentioned is the 7th prince. Talia mentions that she didn't expect the person behind the mass-produced spellbound swords to be so cute. Then Babylon says that rumors say Lloyd pretends to be unremarkable, but is actually very powerful. Galilea says that since Lloyd now knows about the Assassin's Guild, they can't let him leave. Meanwhile, Lloyd removes his barrier, which surprises Grimm, and asks why he did that. Lloyd explains that now he's going to deal with individuals with unique powers, and it would be a waste not to experience them. Lloyd then uses Trace, Tao of the Hayaka Ken, and challenges the Assassin's Guild members to fight. He asks Grimm to stay back, but Grimm questions if Lloyd is sure about removing the barrier. Suddenly, Babylon attacks him, but he blocks every strike. Babylon mentions that he didn't know the prince was taught martial arts. Lloyd thinks tracing Tao has paid off, as her incredible defenses are impressive. Then Babylon reveals that he was born exceptionally flexible, and he is able to twist his body enough to fit through the tiniest spaces, like a rodent. He introduces himself as the warp-blighted Babylon the giant rat. Lloyd thinks that's an impressive ability, as even sorcery couldn't make him that flexible. He mentions that Babylon's body is truly unique. Suddenly, Lloyd feels his body become incredibly heavy. He realizes that Crow the Dark Raptor has used sync magic on him. Crow is known as the Curse Blighted because his words can curse people. Then Galilea tries to attack Lloyd, but Lloyd uses enhanced power to escape. However, Lloyd gets caught in Galilea's web. Galilea explains that he can transmute the mana around his body into a sticky fluid, so he's known as the Web Blighted. However, Lloyd escapes from the web, leaving his shirt behind. He realizes that Galilea's ability to transmute mana into webs is similar to Ren's ability to transmute mana into poison. Lloyd seems impressed by their unique abilities and thinks that Galilea's power to create webs from mana is amazing. Suddenly, Talia attacks Lloyd and asks him why he's exposing himself in a situation like this. She wonders if he has lost his sense of fear and shame, and then she wounds her leg, and in an instant, Lloyd gets wounded as well. Talia explains that she is the Pain Blighted, and she has the ability to share her damage with anyone she can see. Lloyd gets confused by how this ability works. Babylon asks Ren to not spread her poison around. Ren questions if Lloyd is some kind of exhibitionist, to which Galilea replies that it's rich coming from her. Ren clarifies that her outfit is not for showing off, but because it helps her abilities. Talia asks Lloyd if he remembers what it's like to be afraid. Lloyd replies that he is completely familiar with those concepts. Lloyd heals his wounds in an instant, which shocks everyone. Talia is amazed and asks Lloyd if it was a healing spell, and wonders how it worked so fast as her leg was pierced all the way through. Lloyd realizes that when he heals, Talia heals too. He boosts the strength in his hands and asks Talia what happens if he injures her. Will the damage reflect back on him? He decides to find out himself, and then he uses the technique Trace, Blader Silpha. Lloyd challenges the Assassin's Guild to show him how they handle defense, as he is eager to test their abilities. Galilea is surprised to see that Lloyd looks just like the swordswoman who traumatized him in the past. Ren asks if he means the one that Galilea and Crow fought, as Lloyd moves forward to attack. They are shocked by his skills. Babylon wonders who this prince really is, as he is surprised that Lloyd can do both sword skills and martial arts. Then Lloyd attacks Babylon and challenges him to see how his flexible body handles the impact. He then notes that Babylon relaxes at the moment of impact to disperse the damage. Then, Crow uses his cursed voice to command, "Get blown away," but Lloyd dodges, and the command hits Galilea instead. Crow apologizes, and Lloyd tells Crow it's his turn, and asks him how he will handle the next attack. Lloyd uses the House of Langley's technique, Twin Dragons Rising, but Crow manages to escape. Lloyd says that Crow didn't finish the command but was slowed down, and thinks that if Crow had managed to say stop, he might have actually stopped him. Crow tries to say something, but Lloyd defeats him using the Diving Sparrow attack. Then Galilea steps in, but Talia stops him, informing him that she is webbed to him, so he should stop moving. But Galilea is angry and moves forward anyway, which leads Talia's clothes to tear. Talia calls him an idiot, and asks if his webs have to stick to everything. Then Lloyd attacks Talia, but she blocks it with her sword and explains that if she gets injured, the damage will affect Lloyd as well. since they're linked. But Lloyd says he has to experience it for himself. He uses the wolf fang technique on Talia and crushes her against the wall. Lloyd feels the reflected pain and finds it incredible. Meanwhile, Galilea captures Lloyd's sword and says he can't use his weapon now, and plans to put him in a hold. But Lloyd escapes and strikes Galilea with the shattering thunderbolt attack, noting that Galilea uses webbing armor to defuse the impact. Lloyd finds their abilities fascinating and moves toward Ren, and asks her to show her poison again. But Ren thinks Lloyd is crazy. Lloyd threatens to make the first move if she doesn't attack. But Galilea warns that Ren can't control her poison mana, so they'll all be affected. Lloyd realizes that's why she is not fighting. He observes that none of them seem to have much control over their powers. Galilea explains that if they could control their powers, they might have found another way of life, and they wouldn't be outlaws. Galilea attacks Lloyd again, but Lloyd evades the attack and counters with shattering thunderbolt. Now Ren attacks Lloyd with her poison, but he stops it with a barrier. However, Galilea stops her and says he's fine, and now his mana is under control. Lloyd explains that he engraved a spell directly onto Galilea's body to help him control his power. He reassures Galilea that external correction is necessary if he couldn't manage it on his own, and the mana that was previously uncontrollable is now circulating inside his body. Lloyd says that he had never tried engraving a spell directly on a body before, but he got impressed that it worked perfectly. Galilea starts crying with happiness as he realizes that the curse he had lived with is now gone. Lloyd tells him that while it's not exactly gone, Galilea should be able to produce mana intentionally now. Lloyd then offers to do the same for the rest of them. Then he engraves spells on all of them which allow them to control their powers. Babylon wonders to see his control over his mana, and Talia is surprised to find that Lloyd also healed them. Crow is also relieved as he is able to speak normally. Galilea tells Ren that she's no longer leaking poison despite her light clothing, which means now Ren can wear whatever she wants now. Ren replies she doesn't care, but Babylon calls her a liar and points out that she's crying. But when Ren notices Lloyd is wearing her clothes, she questions why the 7th prince is now part of their gang. Talia tells Ren that they owe Lloyd a lot and suggests they need to prepare for a welcome party for him. However, Ren protests and mentions that Lloyd is producing weapons for war and snuck into their hideout, which means he is an enemy. Grim approaches Ren and explains that Lloyd's actions were driven by his idea of a good time, not for war. Ren gets confused and asks what kind of prince makes spellbound swords and sneaks into an assassin's hideout for fun. But Galilea interrupts and says it's more important to explain themselves to Prince Lloyd, as there's much he needs to know. Talia agrees, and mentions that Lloyd showed them a new path when they were starting to stagnate. Then Galilea starts explaining the history of their guild, and tells the story of how they became the Assassin's Guild, also about their leader Jade, who is the Phantom Blighted. In a flashback, we see Jade appearing in front of the guild members, where he explains his recent teleportation experience to a sandy place with ruins. Then Jade reveals a coin, the Blighted Union's emblem, and announces their new purpose: to take on shady jobs the Adventurers Guild can't handle, leaving a coin at each job to show their contribution to world peace. He vows to prove their worth to the Adventurers Guild, so they won't have to hide in the dark anymore. The other guild members are also excited by this vision. However, Jade suddenly teleports away again, leaving the guild members disappointed. Now, back in the present, Galilea continues the story and explains how the Assassin's Guild began taking on difficult jobs and how it gave them hope for the future. In their journey, they come to know about Lord Ost preparing for war. However, Lloyd wonders if he can gain more knowledge about Jade's teleportation power. Suddenly, a letter teleports there, shocking everyone. Meanwhile, Silpha arrives, saying she's there to save Prince Lloyd. Elsewhere, Albert is shocked by the note Silpha found, as he realizes that Lloyd intends to visit Lord Ost's manor with the Assassin Guild. He wonders how this happened during tense times with Lord Ost. Albert questions why Lloyd is with the Assassins, but he also wonders if Lord Ost and the Assassins are working together and kidnapped Lloyd as a hostage. Then Diane advises Albert to calm down, and urges him to consider starting a war with Lord Ost based on a theory. Albert acknowledges Diane's wish and tells him that war might be a last option. Then Silpha shows Albert the clothes which she found at the hideout. Albert is horrified, and when Silpha suggests Lloyd might have been stripped, he becomes more determined to consider war as an option. A few moments ago, the assassins were shocked after seeing the letter with Jade's mark on it. Galilea opens it and becomes emotional while reading. In the letter, Jade apologizes for taking so long to return, and shares the news that he has overthrown the rulers of Lord Ost. Now he is the Lord. He invites them and informs them that he has already planned a celebration at the Lord's manor. Everyone gets excited. However, Grim becomes curious and asks them what's going on. Talia explains to him that Jade is back and has kept his promise. Back to the present, Lloyd quickly takes them by flying towards the manor, but Ren asks him to stop. Lloyd says he thought they were in a hurry to see Jade. Then, in a flashback, Galilea tells Lloyd that they are heading to meet Jade, and assures him he will be repaid for helping them to control their curses. Ren also invited him to join them to place a spell on Jade. Lloyd asks Ren if she knows where the letter came from. She replies it just appeared out of nowhere. Lloyd then says that means the letter was accurately teleported, which is a very advanced magical skill. Talia asks him what he is thinking, and Babylon tells her that Jade might now control his powers. However, Galilea wonders if Jade lied about not being able to control his power before. Talia questions why Jade would lie. Now Galilea wonders if they can trust Jade's letter. Talia asks if he thinks it's a trap. Lloyd tells them that if Jade can control his power, he won't need to come with them. But he's coming because his interest in teleportation sparked. Lloyd assures them that if something goes wrong, he will take care of it, and asks them to relax and follow him. Seeing this, Galilea says Lloyd's kindness knows no limits, and having him with them will be a huge relief. Back in the present, they land at a place, but seeing everyone's faces, Lloyd asks what's wrong with them since they haven't even been flying for 10 minutes. Grim tells Lloyd that he doesn't think this is going to work, because Babylon is bent so far back and stuck. Lloyd says it's fine since they're almost there anyway, and suggests they should take a break and then walk the rest of the way. Ren stands up and suggests she'll go grab something to eat from the woods if they are resting. Talia disagrees, but Ren runs into the woods anyway. Then Babylon tells Lloyd that Ren grew up in the woods, and that's why she is trying to show off. Lloyd asks why, and Babylon explains that when Ren was young, her poison eliminated her parents, so she lived in the forest on her own. Then Talia explains that Jade was the one who reached out to Ren. She recalls when Jade introduced Ren to them as the new member, saying she was the poison-blighted Ren. Galilea was initially concerned, as poison sounded like bad news. But Jade insists that it is fine and tells them that he would teach Ren how to get along. Galilea wonders how, but Jade reassures them, saying Ren smells sweet like flowers. However, he got hurt. Then he tries to wrap Ren up to stop the poison. Despite this, Galilea thinks that it isn't enough to contain the poison. Nevertheless, Jade declares that he will be living with Ren no matter what, and insists on others helping him. The other members then decide on their duties to take care of Ren. After a lot of hard work, they create special clothes to control Ren's power. Talia informs Ren that Jade came up with a spell to neutralize her toxic mana, which they make simple and black, easy to put on and take off. After that, Ren was able to join them, though she cried after receiving the outfit. Back in the present, Talia says since then, Jade has been like a real brother to Ren, and they're all like a family. After hearing this and looking at the cloth, Lloyd says now he would like to meet this Jade. Grim is surprised to see that Prince Lloyd is interested in another human being, which is why he also thinks Jade must be something special. After a while, Ren starts cooking food. Galilea asks what it is, and if he's having a nightmare. Ren explains it's an improvised stew of forest goodies. However, after looking at the food, Babylon asks Crow to use his cursed speech to make the dish taste good. When Crow tries to say taste good, Ren punches him in the face and insists it's already good. She asks everyone to humor her and try it. Then Talia reminds Ren that Lloyd is a prince. Ren acknowledges this, saying that this is barely even food fit for royalty. When Lloyd starts eating, everyone is shocked. Lloyd says it tastes pretty good, nice and rich. Grim jokes that if something that thick wasn't rich, then he'd be freaking out. Lloyd thinks that in his past life, when he was broke, he made and ate much worse stuff. Babylon is surprised, noting that they grew up in the slums and hesitated to eat it. Yet Lloyd is enjoying the stew. Crow tastes the food and agrees with Lloyd, saying it's good and rich. Galilea points out that Ren has an unexpected talent, and mentions that she never got to cook before, because her poison would end up in the food. This excites Ren, and she hopes that Jade will get to eat it someday. After that, Ren starts telling Lloyd and Grim about Jade. She shares a flashback where Jade announces that the Adventurers Guild is reconsidering the bounties on their heads. Everyone gets excited, assuming that they won't be outlaws anymore and can live normal lives. But Jade slows them down by mentioning that the guild is only considering it, and they don't know what will happen yet. Galilea happily says that means they're almost there, and offers Jade a drink. Then Jade confesses that he has claimed to be a random vagabond, but he is actually the third son of the Lord of Lordost. He admits he's a noble and initially approached them to use them. Jade explains that his family, who rule over Lordost, are devilish and plan for war daily. But he wanted to stop the war, so he sought allies in power to form his team. He apologizes for manipulating them. The others jokingly ask Jade if this makes him a rich boy. Babylon says they knew this from his behavior. Galilea mentions that they've all had tough pasts, which is why they don't talk about it. Then Babylon reminds Jade they're outlaws for a reason. Talia also tells Jade that regardless of his true identity and motives, he gave them hope, and he is like a son to people used to living in the shadows. Galilea says he could have kept this secret and calls him a stupid goof for telling. Then Jade shares his desire to settle things on his own. He warns that if the Adventurers Guild discovers they ran assassinations based on his personal grudge, their bounties will skyrocket and they'll never know freedom. He says that his body, family, and life feel cursed, but his time with them has been a blessing. He often wished to forget about Lordost and leave with them, feeling that this must be what family feels like, but he can't ignore the impending war. Then Jade reveals he has a dream now and asks others to promise something. Even if he never returns from Lordost, they must keep the guild going and not give up their dream of living freely. Jade tells them that if he becomes the ruler of Lordost, he will create a place where blighted can live happily and they can all leave together. Back to the present, after hearing the story, Grimm thinks Jade is awesome. After that, they started walking. But in midway, Galilea finds it unbelievable that Lloyd, with his amazing powers, falls asleep and looks just like a cute kid. Grimm tells him that Lloyd isn't that cute. Even when he's sleeping, he always has a heavy-duty barrier on him. Galilea agrees with Grimm. Ren suggests they should let Lloyd rest while they check out the manor first, as she is concerned that Jade might be manipulated by the heads of Lordost and forced to send the letter. Galilea agrees that it's a good idea to make sure everything is safe. Babylon says that they should try to make things easy for Lloyd. Ren asks Grimm if he can stay with Lloyd. Grimm replies that Lloyd is invincible even when asleep, and that he's more worried about them. If something happens to them while Lloyd is asleep, he fears Lloyd would be angry with him. They proceed to see Jade and leave Lloyd behind. They find everyone preparing for a party to welcome them and notice there's no sign of increased security. Ren asks Grimm what he thinks. Grimm replies that he doesn't sense any aggression and suggests they return once they have Prince Lloyd with them. Ren agrees, as she wants to introduce Lloyd to Jade. Galilea recalls that Jade mentioned being interested in the 7th prince before. Meanwhile, a servant approaches them and asks if they are the Assassin's Guild, also wondering why they didn't enter through the door. The servants start serving them, and Galilea feels so good that he says he feels like he's going to be sick. However, Talia is confused about table manners. Grimm says he'll fly back and bring Lloyd. But Ren stops him and tells Grimm that she's nervous about seeing Jade again, so she asks Grimm to stay with her a bit longer. Then Galilea asks a waiter if Jade is around. In the meantime, Jade arrives and greets the Assassin's Guild. He appreciates them for arriving so quickly. Everyone gets emotional upon seeing him, but then Jade changes his clothes with teleportation. Galilea asks Jade if he can control his power now. Jade confirms that after practicing, he has managed to do so. They all feel relieved after hearing this. Then Ren moves towards Jade to say something, but becomes nervous. Jade also becomes emotional and admits he feels the same way. However, when Grimm flies away, Jade suddenly attacks them with cursed speech, commanding them to bow down. Crow is shocked after seeing this. He wonders how Jade's cursed speech is so much more forceful than his own. Then Jade reveals his true intentions. He asks his sinister companions if this is an easy way to collect a bunch of healthy blighted. Ren asks Jade what he's doing, but he ignores her and instructs his comrades to make their pick from the blighted bodies. Suddenly, Grimm returns and attacks Jade. Grimm tells everyone to run and get Lloyd. However, Jade quickly strikes Grimm from behind and mocks him for interfering in his plans. Grimm is injured and falls near Lloyd, who wakes up. Upon waking, Lloyd questions where the assassin members are. Grimm explains what happened and tells him that they didn't sense aggression because it was a trap. Back at the manor, Ren demands to know what's going on. However, the bad fellows mock her for not understanding and call the Assassin Guild members inferior. Meanwhile, Galilea realizes that they are psychic life forms that can infect and control humans. Jade confirms this and reveals that he is a demon from the Netherworld, who has taken control of Jade's body for its teleportation ability. He introduces himself as Guisarme, the catastrophe from the netherworld, and declares that Jade is now dead. Guisarme explains that teleportation is a wonderful ability. However, it took him months to read Jade's mind, during which he enjoyed hollowing out Jade's heart. This enrages Ren, and she demands to know what Guisarme did to Jade. But Guisarme kicks her in the face and mentions that he was just getting to that. Guisarme tells them how Jade cared so much about them, and how he always begged not to hurt his friends. Hearing this, everyone gets angry and tries to fight back. Then Guisarme reveals that as his grip tightened around Jade's brain, he learned all about them. He explains that the bodies of the blighted are suitable vessels for them. Jade knew that Guisarme would come for them all next, which is why Jade chose to die, knowing that if his body died while inhabited, Guisarme would die too. Then Guisarme mocks them and asks if they can guess what Jade did. It turns out not a damn thing. Guisarme continues saying that Jade kept thinking about how he could protect his friends, which made him both glad and sad. Memories of the group rushed through Jade's brain, but Guisarme enjoyed healing Jade in a flash and letting him reach death's doorstep before undoing all the damage. Watching Jade's grim determination go to waste was so much fun for Guisarme. He describes how Jade tried to eliminate himself in various ways, but each time, Guisarme brought him back and eroded his mind faster and faster. In the end, Jade's noble mind left this world in a futile pursuit of salvation via death. Then the other psychic lifeforms urge Lord Guisarme to let them take the blighted bodies now, and they particularly want Ren. Guisarme tells them to be cautious with Ren, and informs them that Ren eliminated her own parents with her poison. This enrages Ren's friends, as they know how much pain that caused her. Each of them wants to defeat Guisarme. Guisarme notes they have 5 bodies here, and asks the psychic lifeforms who they want to pick. However, he notices a mark on Ren's hand, which is something he has not seen in Jade's memories. He identifies it as a spell, and feels bad after seeing his property defaced. Guisarme asks who did this and what kind of effect it has. He uses his cursed speech on Ren, but he gets surprised when she resists. He wonders if it's because he broke Ren's hairpin. In her memories, Ren talks to Jade, where she says that she no longer spreads poison. She can wear cute clothes now, and she could hug him. She tells Jade that there's someone she wants him to meet. Guisarme asks Ren to reveal that person's name. Then he again asks her who placed the spell on her. Suddenly, Lloyd arrives and uses a powerful attack, destroying everything there except for the guild members. Lloyd stands before Guisarme and says he is the one he has been looking for. Meanwhile, his attack is so powerful that all the demons are scared. When Lloyd sees Ren crying, he approaches her and asks if she was trying to bite her tongue. Lloyd tells her that Grimm has informed him about what happened, and then he asks the assassin members to leave. He explains that Guisarme is after them, so they should let him handle it alone. As they start to leave, Ren asks Galilea why they are running. Galilea explains that there are still many demons around, including Guisarme, and Lloyd is too powerful, like a monster, so they would only get in his way. Meanwhile, a demon wonders if Lord Guisarme is okay and hopes that he must be. The other thinks Lord Guisarme has been defeated, but before he can finish saying it, Guisarme appears behind him and kicks him. He angrily asks the demons what they are doing and reminds them of their mission. He tells them to chase the assassins because they are experts at hiding, and they might never find them again if they are too slow. The demons agree and rush to catch the assassins, but Lloyd stops them with powerful magic. Seeing this powerful attack, Galilea is shocked and realizes it must be Prince Lloyd's magic. Meanwhile, Guisarme manages to escape Lloyd's attack once again. Then demons and Guisarme attack Lloyd. Guisarme uses his cursed speech to attack him. This attack shocks him, as Guisarme's attack pierces through his barrier. He realizes it didn't break the barrier but slipped through it. Lloyd thinks about what would happen if the attack hits him and wonders what to do. Grimm quickly tells him to dodge the attack. Lloyd dodges the attack, and the attack strikes a demon. Then Lloyd uses his analysis class spell and finds that the demon is being eliminated by the parasitic demon instantly, with the cause of death being cardiac arrest. Grimm tells him to run now and explains that what Guisarme is doing doesn't require a spell. His mana directly creates the effects. It's similar to what Crow and Ren do, a transmutation of mana, similar to pazuzu's abilities. Lloyd acknowledges this, noting the similarity to Crow's cursed speech. However, Guisarme's is much more effective. He explains that using a spell to create effects can be blocked with a mana wall, but when the attack is purely mana-based, it can slip through barriers like water through a sieve. If they were dealing with someone like Pazuzu, Lloyd could likely overpower Guisarme's attacks with his own mana, but in this case, Guisarme's mana might pierce his defenses. Then Guisarme says his minions are idiots who can be eliminated by inferior techniques like sorcery. Grimm informs Lloyd that demons are ranked from 1st to 10th class, where 10th class demons being considered trash demons, which is why magic works on them. Grimm further explains that Pazuzu was an 8th class demon, and he himself is a 3rd class demon. Lloyd guesses that Guisarme must be a 1st class demon, but Grimm corrects him, saying Guisarme is beyond that, as he is Netherworld royalty and a demon lord. Grimm further explains that regular demons are like peasants compared to him, and even 100 first-class demons wouldn't stand a chance against him. They are living catastrophes on the scale of a natural disaster. Lloyd realizes that Guisarme is more than just a villain and extremely powerful. Despite this, Lloyd moves toward Guisarme and says they have to find a chance to fight back. Guisarme asks Lloyd what exactly he is. Lloyd replies that he is just a prince, specifically the 7th prince. Guisarme recalls something about Lloyd from Jade's memories, but has forgotten the details. He mentions that Jade seemed to have a desire to see Lloyd for some reason. Lloyd agrees and says he would have loved to meet Jade too, but now it will never happen. He tells Guisarme that he just ruined that chance and questions what his problem is. Guisarme asks the same question and points out the mess Lloyd has made of his subordinates and manor. Lloyd replies that Guisarme is targeting the guild, which represents the potential for new advancements in sorcery. Guisarme responds that Lloyd is also trying to help the Blighted escape, and these are the same Blighted that make perfect bodies for his kind. He insists that this is a debt that needs to be settled. Lloyd agrees and says he won't be satisfied until they have settled things. Both get excited and challenge each other to try and entertain themselves. Grimm tells them that they should run, stating that the odds here are just too bad. Lloyd agrees, acknowledging that he won't be able to easily blow Guisarme away with sorcery like he did with the others on the ground. Grimm thinks that even a 10th class demon is so strong with a natural resistance to sorcery that it is like a fish not dying from water unless it's under high pressure. He realizes that Guisarme is on another level and that high pressure mana would feel like gentle waves to him. Guisarme then attacks Lloyd, causing significant damage to Lloyd's barrier. Grimm is shocked and thinks about how Lloyd's heavy-duty barrier is being peeled through with the scraps of mana, even though his powerful attack was stopped dead. Guisarme comments on the strong protection Lloyd has, and unleashes multiple powerful attacks to see how many layers of barriers can hold up to them. Lloyd struggles to escape the attack as it easily breaks through the layers of his barrier. Then Guisarme uses teleportation to stop Lloyd, which shocks Grimm. Guisarme breaks multiple layers of the barrier with just a normal kick and tries to attack Lloyd with multiple magical strikes. However, Lloyd counters by using Seismo-Terrasier. Seeing the intense battle between Lloyd and Guisarme, the guild members are shocked. Talia wonders what kind of fight they are witnessing. The demons are also stunned by the battle, but they suddenly notice the guild members nearby and rush toward them. As the demons approach, Galilea asks Babylon to open the gate. However, Ren seems worried about Lloyd. Grimm starts crying and tells Lloyd about his tears, but Lloyd says he needs something else and tells Grimm to ignore the tears. Guisarme realizes that Lloyd is unharmed, despite not being able to pressure him effectively except with his teleportation ability. Lloyd questions Guisarme about the teleportation ability and asks if it belongs to him. Guisarme confirms it is Jade's and explains that Jade could never control this power, but he can. Guisarme further explains that humans need spells to master such abilities, but his kind, born masters of mana, can use them instinctively, much like birds know how to fly without being taught. Then he calls the Blighted pitiful, who have wings but lack the wisdom to use them. He says that Jade's wings were grand enough to be heard flapping in the distant netherworld, but wonders why they resist their fate. He believes the Blighted should be happy to die and offer their bodies, as a Blighted is only whole once they become a vessel for a demon. Then Guisarme prepares his next attack to demonstrate this perfection to Lloyd. Guisarme asks Lloyd how he will react to this. Will he defend, dodge, or run? He tells Lloyd he doesn't have a choice, and then uses teleportation to strike Lloyd. Guisarme says there's no need for acceleration or accuracy, as he will deliver a death that cannot be countered. He continues to attack Lloyd with teleportation, hitting him multiple times. Guisarme then decides to rechristen this power, using the title bestowed on his vessel, the Shadow Wolf. Meanwhile, the guild members and demons come face to face. The demons demand the Blighted to surrender their bodies. To counter, Galilea uses his web power and says that Prince Lloyd gave them the ability to control their powers, and they won't give them up without a fight. He traps the demons in his web, which hardens like rock after a few seconds. However, one demon replies that a few seconds are enough to eliminate a few guild members. Then Crow uses his cursed speech on the demons, commanding them to fall. The demons collapse, as they are perfectly targeted by Crow's cursed speech without affecting any allies. In the meantime, Babylon opens the gate and tells them it's open. Galilea praises Babylon and tells others to get under the gate, but then he notices that the demons have broken free from the webbing and the effects of the cursed speech. He finds it unbelievable. One of the demons taunts them by saying they won't get far even if they try to run. Talia steps in and thinks she needs to see all the demons at once to use her ability. She uses Mass Affliction Synchrony, the 100 Pains, and inflicts pain on the demons. She thanks Lloyd for what she can now do. Meanwhile, seeing this, Crow asks Talia what she is doing. Talia apologizes and asks him to stay out of her line of sight because she can't yet control her ability well enough to avoid affecting allies. She tells them to get going and to hide their presence once they reach the woods. Ren asks what she means and how she plans to escape with her injured leg. Seeing Talia's attack, a demon wonders if she can share her wounds with them and is impressed by her ability. However, he heals himself and warns Talia not to underestimate a demon's ability to regenerate. Meanwhile, Talia hurts her leg again and shares her wound with the demons. After getting hurt, the demons find Talia's power so dangerous and are shocked to see how she is not even hesitating. Talia tells her friends to hurry up and go. She promises them that she will not let the demons take her body. However, Ren protests and says they can't leave her behind. She tries to go back, but Galilea pushes her back and closes the gate. Ren wonders what Galilea is doing, while Talia asks Galilea why he's not staying out of her line of sight as she asked. Galilea explains that she can't hold off all the demons on her own, and mentions that they will tear through the gate without much trouble. He warns that at this rate, nobody will make it. Talia agrees and says that's why she was going to hurt herself more. Galilea tells her that he will be there when she strikes the death blow and asks her to take him with her. Hearing this, the demons wonder if Talia really means to strike a death blow. They are in disbelief, but Talia puts her sword to her neck and scares the demons. They shout to stop her and say to forget her body. They must eliminate her if necessary. As they move towards Talia, Galilea stops them with his webbing ability. Talia tells the demons they need to learn something. She explains that they have been fugitives, blighted, and assassins, and asks them to see what they are capable of. She tries to slice her neck, but Ren stops her. Then Talia remembers how Jade must have felt before dying and thinks Jade might have been trying to engage in self-harm over and over again. This makes Ren emotional, and she says they can control their curses now, so they won't have bounties anymore. Ren says that Jade may never come back, but they are close to being able to live openly. Talia angrily tells the demons not to underestimate what the Assassin's Guild will do for each other. However, Ren continues trying to stop her by talking about their newfound control over their curses and their hope for a better future. Meanwhile, Guisarme mocks the idea of guild members living together in harmony, something Jade had dreamed of. He finds this idea pitiful and expresses his disappointment that Lloyd couldn't entertain him longer. Then Guisarme declares that now he will show how insects don't have the right to life or death. Suddenly, Guisarme notices that the Lloyd he attacked was just a decoy made of dirt. The real Lloyd appears in front of him and attacks with a sword, but Guisarme escapes using his teleportation power. Guisarme realizes that Lloyd is now using a sword and thinks the battle is only getting started. However, Lloyd is not sure what to do, as he realizes this situation is not good at all. Guisarme taunts Lloyd and tells him not to start cowering and demands a better fight from him. Then Lloyd asks if they can move their fight somewhere else. Meanwhile, the Assassin Guild members suddenly see a fire attack strike the demons. Suddenly, the gate is sliced down, and from the broken gate, Albert, Silpha, Diane, and the spellbound Sword Corps arrive. Silpha says that things have taken an unexpected turn, and Diane asks where Lloyd is. Albert orders the spellbound Sword Corps to follow him as they are now rescuing his brother. And that's the end of the video. Please comment and let me know if you want a recap of the next episode of this anime. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, goodbye.